and thanks for having me. I'm always happy to talk with up and coming graduates. I have my master's in public affairs from UT from the LBJ school and have worked in a number of different sectors, including the federal government and higher ed for a while before landing in Loudoun County in the Office of Management and Budget about 6.5 years ago. So with that, I will share my screen here. All right, can y'all see my presentation? Yep, okay. All right, I will run through this. So like I said, I'm Emily the Seal, and I'm a team lead here in the Office of Management and Budget within County Administration in Loudoun County. And I, as one of my hats, I manage our Management Fellow program. So I will tell you a little bit about that. So the program began back in 2000, so we have quite a long history. There have been about 25 fellows, and including about 7 that are still with the county today. So one thing we're especially proud of is that many of our fellows go on to take permanent roles within county government. And in fact, that's one of our performance measures. We seek to obtain placement for all management fellows into a relevant job within 6 months of the program end date. And then ideally, we seek to place them within Loudoun County government in particular. And then we also try to achieve a 90% satisfaction rating for all of the projects that our fellows complete while they are with us. I think I just skipped past that one. So our program is 2 years in duration. So the fellows who come in are here for 2 years. They're in full-time temporary positions within the Office of Management and Budget, and we budget for about 2 annually. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. The requirement is just recent graduation, and usually that's about 2 years from an MPA, MPP, or similar program. Our current list of projects, we just solicited those. We have a number of really great ones that are being worked on currently. One is in our animal services department, getting an animal-friendly community designation. And then also as part of that rotation and all of our rotations, so that one, our fellow is going to be sitting at the front desk of the animal shelter to kind of understand what happens there day in and day out, and riding along with our humane law enforcement officers to understand the work that they do. So most of our projects have an administrative component, but whenever we can, we try to get fellows out into the field to experience as much of, sort of that day-to-day interaction as possible. We also have someone working with human resources, learning and organizational development on a women mentorship employee resource group. So we've had this sort of women's mentorship program in the works for a while now, and she's going to be taking that and then kind of redesigning it so that it fits within an employee resource group structure led by employees. So working on that. And then for all of our projects, we have in the beginning an intake process where we request information about the project. So we try to understand how long it's going to take, what capacity of the fellow's time, just to get it scoped out really accurately so that the fellow can be successful in completing that. And then at the end, we do an evaluation. And about every 6 months, as the program manager, I take those evaluations and sort of bundle them up to give fellows meaningful feedback. It's not a formal review process. It's really just meant to help fellows grow in their experiences and their role. And then every year we support the state legislative session as well. So that's an ongoing project that we're committed to. Some recent projects that have been completed. The opioid abatement blueprint, which was a blueprint to help guide our Department of Mental Health, Substance Abuse, and Domestic Services. I think I got that right, MHSADS, in developing a blueprint for the opioid abatement strategy. The HR entrance and exit survey for employees coming in and then employees as they're leaving the organization. both designing and then doing data analysis on the survey results in coordination with HR. Recently, in the last couple of years, we had a fellow work with our elections and voter registration department on their chain of custody and standard operating procedures. They have a really well-defined process, but just hadn't gotten it all written down. So our fellow kind of went in and watched them do their work, watched where all their equipment goes, how they check it in, check it out, and then wrote that all down for them. So when they get things like FOIA requests, that's all there and documented. So those are just a few examples of past and current projects that we have going on. And then as the manager of the program, to the extent I can, I really try to match fellows into projects that interest them, because that's obviously going to make it a better experience for everyone. So just this last solicitation, which lasted about a month, we got about 10 projects. So there was quite a good number to choose from for our current fellows that we have. One other thing I wanted to talk about was the partnership with ICMA. So ICMA has their local government management fellowship program. And so we're part of that. So we get both candidates who apply just through Loudoun's website, but then also that ICMA pool of candidates. And as part of that, all of our fellows, regardless of whether they went through ICMA, receive the benefits associated with that. So there's a cohort of fellows who are all across the country, and they have calls about every quarter to kind of talk about what's going on in their areas, share information and network. And then our fellows also go to the ICMA, have the opportunity to go to the ICMA conference every year. So that's a great benefit. Also, the role of our county administrator as the formal mentor, that's a formalized role. So every quarter, our fellows meet with the county administrator to just talk about what's going on, get advice. And I think that's a really unique component of our program as well. And yeah, so the ICMA conference fees are waived as well. So that partnership we've had now for a few years. So just a little bit about our application and interview process. Our application should be going live here in the next week or so, and I'll share that with Denise to pass on when it's up. It's just a standard application with some supplemental questions to answer. Then from there, we do interviews in late February, early March, and then usually our fellows start in the summertime to coincide with the fiscal year, but there's some flexibility before or after for anyone who's graduating early, may be available early or has summer plans. We're pretty flexible as far as the start date. And then I did just want to show if it'll work. One of our recent fellows did a little video for ICMA. So I'm going to attempt to pull that up to share it with you all.
Someone just commented, and I just noticed it too. It looks like you're frozen on one of the screens, Emily.
Oh, okay. Which one? Let me see. Are you seeing this one?
The program details. Someone was saying.
Do you see a video now?
No.
Let me change my view. Sorry, we usually use Teams, so I'm a little.
That's okay.
Let me try again. All right, do you see my video now?
We got it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, thanks for telling me that. Okay, here we go.
We don't have volume.
Let me figure out. Um, let's,
You can always, if it's just a 2-minute video, Emily, if it's easier, if
yeah.
you just send me the link and I can send it along to people.
Okay. I might have to, yep, that sounds good. Um, let's see if there's a way. All right. That's fine. So I'll share it with you, Denise, and you can share it later. That's a bummer. Okay. All right. So getting back to the presentation. So that was, I just wanted to share that so you guys could get a view of Marin's experience. She's one of our current fellows. But are there any questions?
This is an opportunity for you all to ask any and all questions. You can either raise your hand. Anybody have any questions? And look, it looks like Amanda was coming in. Yep. Great, Amanda.
I'll ask a question. Hi, Emily. Thank you for being here. I was curious if there are any projects actually with the Office of Management and Budget for fellows.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great benefit of being housed within our office. We recently had one of our operating analysts went out and had a baby. So she was out for 3 months. So while she was on leave, that was an opportunity for one of our fellows to kind of see what that experience was like. And so she served as a temporary analyst. And that was a more formalized role, but then we also have informal opportunities. So right now we're in the thick of budget development. So management fellows will, come in sort of on an ad hoc basis to do things like help us quality check our departmental resource requests and look at budget pages, that kind of thing. And then throughout the year, as they're, as the needs come up, we sort of ask for help from fellows, especially if we know there's an interest there. So definitely.
Thank you.
And a question came in on the chat.
Yes, great question. Thanks, Daniela. So our management fellows, like I said, are temporary positions authorized for 2 years. And they're on the same salary scale as regular positions. So there's a salary range. And so when, if you were to apply, you interview, if you're selected, then based on experience, education, then we work with HR to develop an offer in terms of compensation, just like we would any other employee. So there's, like I said, there's a range there, which will be up in the job ad. Benefits fellows as long-term temporary employees are eligible for health insurance, eligible for all benefits with the exception of retirement. So that's the one, but not in there. But in terms of other leave benefits and health insurance, that's all in there. And then support provided, I talked about ICMA. So our fellows went to Austin this past year for ICMA. All of that's covered. Any professional member organizations within reason, right? So we're all generally members of GFOA, ICMA. So that's all included. Again, the main goal of the fellowship is to give fellows a chance to get that experience. So part of that is providing professional development support. So that's definitely something we pride ourselves on. In terms of one example in there, so that's travel, but in terms of housing, we don't provide a specific housing stipend. And honestly, that's probably like the biggest pain point for me is like, I know how hard it was when I moved here to find housing. So that's something we try as much as possible to ask around, look for opportunities, talk with the current fellows to see what they did. But unfortunately, there's no like formal housing stipend or anything like that.
Other questions? See, it looks like one came in. I have questions, but I'm gonna see what people have. Nope. So I have a couple questions I'll ask, and often students come and ask about is one, what is the average tenure? Do people come and stay in your department? If they leave, where do they go from there? And then I would love to hear a little bit more about culture. People often with different levels of public sector talk about bureaucracy. Tell me a little bit more about how you all manage that and what the culture is in the office. So hearing a little bit more about both tenure and culture.
Yeah, great questions. So tenure, our deputy county administrator, Erin McClellan, she started as a fellow, I don't know how many years ago. But so she's literally, that's where she started, and now she's like second to Mr. Hemstreet. So that, there are several people who've been in the organization a very long time. Then I've had some colleagues who started as fellows and then maybe went on to be an analyst in a department and then moved back over to OMB, and now have gone on, to work other places. So it really varies, the tenure, that question. And then in terms of culture, just within the Office of Management and Budget, we try to make budgeting as fun as possible. So we have a really open culture, really friendly and engaging. This time of year, it's kind of all hands on deck, and everyone. One thing I really appreciate about our office in particular is that we all kind of put our egos aside and just help each other out when we need to, in order to get the job done and have a quality product. And then, we try to celebrate our successes when we have those, learn from things. We all try to take ownership. And if we identify something that is less than ideal, we're not going to sit around and wait for somebody else to fix it, right? We know some of the most impactful members of our team have been the ones who were just like, let's figure out a way to do this, and have improved processes for everyone. So in that way, we're really collaborative, really engaged. And I like to think, we have just like a really great team that enjoys spending time with each other as well. So that definitely helps, especially when things get pretty busy as they do.
Fantastic. I have another question if people don't have questions. I always like you all to have your first dibs. Catherine.
I have a question. Yes, thank you so much for speaking with us. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about maybe opportunities for fellows to work together throughout their time in the program, or just general opportunities to build relationships with fellow fellows or cross departments in the county.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's one thing I've really appreciated this past, since May, since we've had two fellows at the same time, is they have been able to build relationships with each other. Whereas like one had just done the legislative rotation and the other was coming into it. So there were lots of opportunities to ask questions and compare notes. They haven't worked on like the same project at once, just because there's such high project demand. But there definitely is like a sense of camaraderie, and I know they talk to each other first before like coming to me with questions. So that's a good sign that they're engaged. Then we also do currently have a few other fellows just in our office. So we have one who was a fellow like 3 years ago. And so they'll often go to him to ask questions and build that relationship there. But I think that just kind of speaks back to the culture question. And then outside of our office, there's definitely, all kinds of like county related work groups that fellows have been engaged in to help, outside of just the project specific stuff, to just help understand other parts of county operations. Again, that just enhances the learning experience.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up question to that, apologies if you already mentioned, do fellows work on one project throughout the 2-year program, or is it possible to be placed on multiple projects depending on project needs and timeline?
Yeah, so our goal is about 3 to 5 per year. But sometimes, like if a project's only like 50% of your time, you could be working on 2 at the same time. So it kind of, what you said in the latter part of your question, sometimes it does vary based on needs and capacity, but it's generally around 3 to 5 during each year.
Okay, thank you.
And then kind of on that note, one thing I'll say too is we say it's like a 2-year commitment, but often depending on what the fellow's experience is in that first year or so, everyone's different in terms of like when you're ready to start looking for permanent placement. So we sort of see that first year is like, for sure, you're going to be in there working on projects. But then that second year, we start to have more conversations about, okay, where do you think you want to go next on a permanent basis? And then we might start looking, might start having those conversations to see what's out there so that you're not getting to the end of the 2 years and like, oh no, what am I doing? You know, just like when you're in grad school, you don't want to wait till the very end. So we start to have those conversations, you know, in that second year.
I'll ask a question that students often again come to me and ask about, and it looks like somebody wrote also a question, what makes a candidate stand out? You know, are there some things that they should be thinking about, internships while they're in graduate school, experiences, courses, papers, and then how do you make sure that that gets translated? Like what would make a candidate stand out actually on the application, on in their resume and cover letter?
Yeah, I think just, again, those supplemental questions, we ask them for a reason. So taking those seriously and being really thoughtful and mindful in those responses. Because fellows work on, you know, a variety of different projects, being able to emphasize some of those soft skills too, things like communication, on being able to come into the organization and you know, understand that different people have different communication styles, and you may need to, one person you may need to email, whereas another is maybe more face to face. So kind of emphasizing those types of communication and other soft skills really stands out. And then also just, you know, trying to apply your real life experience to situations that you might find yourself in during the project rotations in the fellowship. And then I see Daniela's question about an example of a past fellows project that significantly impacted Loudoun County. I mean, I like to think that they all do, right? But a few that I can think of, I'd say the HR entrance and exit surveys. That's an area I think that really adds value to, you know, everyone coming into the organization, because we're looking at, you know, both the folks who are coming in after, I think it's after 6 months we do it, and then understanding why people are leaving the organization. And some of those things might impact things like what benefits we offer to employees, which those types of things, you know, they change every year during the budget process. We analyze benefits and try to understand, you know, what may need to be adjusted. So I think that's definitely an area of impact. And then the legislative rotation as well. As you all know, you know, policy impacts all of us. So understanding the policy process at the state and federal levels, and then how those policies impact us at the local level is really critical and impactful to everyone.
Any other questions? Oh, looks like there one just came in.
Federal level budgeting practices or collaborate with federal agencies. I wouldn't say anything. So there's definitely exposure to the federal budget, right? And how things like ARPA or some of the COVID relief funding, like how that impacts our budget, or other federal programs. Generally, how the federal budget impacts the local budget, but not explicit collaboration with federal agencies, at least in my time. There is sort of on a separate level exposure to the towns within Loudoun. So our fellows have spent a day with, I think, all but one of the towns within Loudoun, and that's given them, we're a larger size organization, so that's given them exposure to you know, to the town of Lovettsville, for example, where we've had people who have been you know, a senior analyst in our office who've then gone on to be the town manager in Lovettsville. So if that's a route that a fellow wants to take, spending a day there with their town manager gives them that type of exposure. So yeah, less on the federal side, that type of exposure, more so local.
Any other questions? I would say next steps is when the position is posted, you will send it to me. As looks like she wasn't able to join us today, but Megan Burke, our alum who is there. What is Megan's exact title?
She's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, I believe.
And she's been there a while, quite a while.
Yeah.
So Megan's wonderful. Megan is also always open to connecting with students. So let me know. We'll have this on recording. I'm sure Emily and Megan would love to have some of you applying to this program. Anything else, Emily, before we wrap up for today?
No, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. And like I said, I'll send the ad and I'll send that video.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for your time. We're always excited to share these opportunities.